Good evening and welcome to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today's date is February 9th, 2023. It's 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. So first up on the agenda, if we could all please rise. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to please ask all the commissioners to introduce themselves, starting with my far left, please.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gerald Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Vishendra Kumar, vice chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arndt, alternate.
Thank you. Next up, item 2, public hearings. We haven't any scheduled for tonight, so we'll move on to number 3, continued public hearings. Item A, matter of Z-22-71, Charles Lichtenauer of Chipman, Mizuko, Emerson, LLC of Danbury, Connecticut. Zoning regulation change to permit, quote, places of worship / parish houses and centers, provided a minimum lot area of 120,000 square feet, unquote, as special permit use in the C1 zone. Since this is a continuation, I will read the instructions for a continued public hearing. This is a continued public hearing for application Z-22-71, which was opened, I don't recall when that was. I have to go back. Opened on January 12th, 2023. And remains open to continue to accept any data bearing on this application. The public notice and rules still apply from the previous meeting. Those general rules being that after accepting any data, I will ask for questions of clarification, followed by comments from those in favor, and finally comments from those in opposition. Mr. Lally, is there any new correspondence in here?
No.
Okay, thank you. At this time, does the applicant wish to present or address the commission?
Sure, briefly.
Please rise to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Charles Lichtenauer, Chipman, Mizuko, Emerson, 44 Old Ridgebury Road in Danbury. So I'd like to start by just refreshing your recollection of the past 2 meetings. We propose an amendment to Section 42A2C of the regulations, which would permit places of worship / parish houses and centers, provided a minimum lot area of 120,000 square feet as a special permit use in the C1 zone. And to summarize previous meetings, I have informed the Commission that the Brookfield zoning regulations violate the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which is a federal law with respect to its treatment of religious institutions in the C1 zone. And I have submitted several documents in support of that conclusion, including information regarding legal action against the town of Meriden for a violation of the act. So, just to clarify a few points that I think have arisen as sources of confusion throughout the past 2 hearings. My client owns property in the C1 zone. They were leasing that property to a church when a cease and desist order was issued by the zoning enforcement officer, Fran Lally, which prohibited the use of the property as a religious institution, place of worship, etc. The church stopped all activities at the property in accordance with the cease and desist, and they remain in compliance with that cease and desist order. My client, through me as their attorney, is hoping to help their tenant gain zoning compliance by first amending the regulations to allow churches to apply by special permit to use locations in the C1 zone. This first step would also happen to bring the C1 zone regulations into compliance with federal law. That federal law mandates that religious institutions be treated at least as favorably as non-religious institutions in zoning regulations. Ms. Hadza raised the question at the last meeting why we are not making an application to change all of the compliance issues in other zones where religious institutions are not permitted. And frankly, there's a simple answer to that, and that is that my client is not affected by regulations of other zones. And this commission has the authority to make those changes in other zones, if required, on its own. I have not been retained to study the Brookfield zoning regulations and the compliance of those regulations with federal law. Now, as I said, the first step is amending the regulations to allow for the equal treatment of churches and non-religious assembly uses in this zone. The second step, which we're not at yet, would be for my client to gain compliance for their tenant by obtaining a special permit at the particular site that they intend to operate on. We're not at that stage. We don't have any right to apply for a special permit because religious institutions are not permitted as a special permit use in the C1 zone. So here my client is asking for a simple regulation change in a single zone in accordance with federal law. And we would ask that you approve this regulation change this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask if there's any questions of clarification for the applicant. Okay. If I may, I was going to ask a question.
Sure.
Are you aware that the applicant and the applicant's attorney in a prior application represented to this commission that they weren't using the property since December 31st of 2021?
I'm not familiar with any representations that the tenants.
No, the applicant and the applicant's attorney represented that.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
That they said that they hadn't used the property since December 31st of 2021.
That could be correct. I'm not familiar with the history dating.
I thought you said
back.
they were leasing it to this church.
They had been briefly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just to follow up on that, Commissioner.
Mr.
It's right here in
Pratt.
Mr. Lally report that they actually did have service there on 5/19 and 5/22 before, after the cease and desist was there, so.
My understanding, and that could very well be correct, my understanding from my client was that they made every attempt to comply with the cease and desist order.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, I would ask then if there's anyone here present who would like to get up and speak in favor of the application. Seeing none, I will ask if there are those who would like to make comments in opposition to the application. Likewise, there are none. Well, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing on item number C-22-71 concerning the 271 Federal Road property.
Mr. Kame has made a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Mr. Pratt has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of closing this public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. No nays. Are there any abstentions? There are none. The motion carries. Now, at this time, would the commission like to make a recommendation as to how to dispose of this application?
Mr. Chairman, I think we have to vote on the application to approve it. So I would, that's I think what our next step is, make a motion to either to approve this and vote on it.
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to make a motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I make a motion that we vote on approval for Z-2271, permit, a change to the permit for the C1 zone to allow places of worship and parish houses and centers provided a minimum lot area of 120,000 square feet as a special permit use in the C1 zone.
Mr. Kames made a motion. Does that motion have a second?
Second.
In this case, I'll go with Mr. Komar Song first, but also Mrs. Holmes seconded the motion. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to, what's the term again? To approve the application?
To change the zoning regulations to permit places of worship and parish houses and centers provided a minimum lot area of 120,000 square feet as a special permit in the C1 zone.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed to the motion signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion does not carry. Thank you. Next up, item number 4, review minutes of previous meetings. We have the minutes from the January 26th, 2023 Zoning Commission meeting, and I would entertain any comments, questions related to the minutes. Well, hearing none, I would like to bring the commission's attention to page 3 of 7, where in the center of the page it says Chairman Getz called for a vote. I, Mr. Komar, Mr. Kame, and Mrs. Arment. Actually, Chairman Getz also voted aye, so that should say Mr. Getz's name as well. And that would change the motion carried. It should say 4 to 1 to 0 instead of 3 to 1 to 0. And that is my only comment at this time. Anyone else have any comments, questions about the minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion then to approve the minutes as amended. If someone would like to make that motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the zoning commission for January 26, 2023 as amended.
I'll second that.
We have a second to Mr. Kame's motion from Mr. Pratt. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes from the January 26, 2023 meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? That motion carries as well. Thank you. Next up, item number 5, enforcement. A zoning enforcement officer's report. Mr. Lally, please.
Sure. 47 High Ridge Road, that's Sal's property. I had a talk with the town attorney on Tuesday, phone conference. He's got a status conference with the courts tomorrow as to procedure and where we're gonna go with that. It's on the blight list also. Liens have been filed on the property. But again, he does have a status conference with the courts on Friday. So I'll have another update as to where that's going at the next zoning meeting. 27 Arapahoe, Costello residence. There was a complaint of a desk and some household furniture down by the end of the road. I did do a visual inspection of the property this morning. The notice of violation ended on Monday. Property's been cleaned and brought into compliance, so there's no violation, so I'm gonna remove that from the report. 10 Broadview Road, Soares Residence. Building Department received a complaint yesterday of a shed being constructed too close to the property line. I went out, took a look. I had the contractor stop because there's no active building permit for a zoning permit for the shed. So I did issue a notice of violation, and in turn, this morning, I did receive a application online, and this afternoon, the application was completed. So the owners are moving forward to correct the issue out there. So I will watch that for the next report. On the cease and desist list, 271 Federal Road, the White Star Properties. There's no current update on that, obviously. We'll see what happens after tonight, but there's been no complaints or anything's been quiet out there at this time, so I'll continue to monitor that. 31 Green Knoll Drive, the McGovern residence. Land Use Director, Rochelle Hazen, will direct that after my report. 35 Hidden Brook Drive, the Torres residence. They built a shed / garage on the right side of their property. Notice of violation was sent, was received. Cease and desist was sent, that was received. They had until February 6th to respond. No action's been taken from the homeowner, so at this point, I would ask the permission of the commission to issue a citation. So I believe some of that would have to be made as a motion from the commission to proceed.
Thank you. Relative to that request, I just had a point of clarification. Is it necessary to get the commission's ratification in order to issue a cease and desist? I just wanted to clarify that.
For a cease and desist, no. Citation, yes.
Okay. So would someone like to make that motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to make a motion that the zoning enforcement officer be directed to issue a citation, as he noted, regarding 35 Hidden Brook Drive.
Mr. Kame has made the motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Komar seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. Please continue, Mr. Lally. Thank you.
107 Stony Hill Road, the Nassar residence. Again, I was out there again today. He's still making progress out there. The upper lot, left side closer to the road has all been cleaned out. A lot of the wood that he's been splitting, he's been burning. That's how his source of heat is for his home. But he is continually making progress out there. It obviously doesn't look the greatest when you're driving by, but compared to what it's been like, he is continually working on the site. And I'm in continual contact with him, so I will continue to monitor that one.
I just had a question on that one, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. On this one, I have, my only concern is that the amount of time that it's taken to actually achieve progress on this property. It seems to indicate here that this issue was started sometime in April of 2021.
Yep.
And, it's now coming up to April of 2023. And this is simply a contractor's yard that, a cease and desist order was sent. Do you have any recommendations on ways that we can shorten this process? I mean, I realize that there are a limited number of things we can do, but is it possible to specify dates when, again, I didn't really actually read through the 100%.
I can give him 30 days. I mean, that's, with 30 days.
Yeah,
There's more than enough fair opportunity.
Well, my concern is not the fact that the fellow is attempting to make progress, which he is, but he's making it at an extremely slow pace. And he does have neighbors out there who certainly, are entitled to the benefits of, proper zoning enforcement. So, and timely zoning enforcement, I should say. So that's my concern. So going forward, I think we, might want to try to do whatever we can to shorten the period of time.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kane. Mr. Lally?
And then on the citation list, the 89 Wiskinger Road, that's still in the courts waiting for the ruling from the judge. So there's no update on that at this time.
Anything further, Mr. Lally?
No, that's.
Thank you. Next up, item 5B, 31 Green Knoll Drive. I think that the ZEO alluded to an update on that. Is there anyone present who would like to provide that at this time? Mrs. Hodson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rochelle
Thank you. Are there any questions, Ms. Sadza, this time?
Just for point of clarification, who actually hears that?
There are 4 hearing officers that have been appointed by the first select woman. They serve for, I believe it's 2 years. You have 4 citation hearing officers. You can have up, the charter says you can have up to 6. We have 4 presently. So I'm not familiar with how Brookfield decides which hearing officer will be shown in that case. So I was discussing it with the first select woman's office today. Both the statute and our town code say that, once the, request for the appeal is received, the town is supposed to, set a date for between 15 and 30 days from the date that we receive the request for the appeal. So, we have some time to, make sure the procedure is done correctly. It's not been the recent history of the town to, issue citations, although I think Mr. Lawley issued one in 2021.
You're correct.
But the respondent didn't appeal, so we can have a meeting with, hearing officer.
Just one more quick question. Is that hearing a public hearing, or?
As I understand it, the public, like any meeting, can abstain, but it's certainly not participation by the public. The appellant has the right to produce evidence, as does the town official who issued the citation.
How would the public be informed of that if they so choose to attend?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. All right.
Is it possible that would be posted on the Brookfield CT.gov website so that there'd be notice given? Because it is kind of unprecedented, so maybe we need to check, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to get you the answer, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I don't, as I say, the procedure is unfamiliar to me, although much of it is spelled out in the code, but these small bits that we're discussing now, unfortunately, are simply not there. I'll get that information to you.
Thank you. Mr. Kim, any other comments or questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
Any
very
other
much.
commissioners have any comments or questions? If I may, then I did have one question of clarification. On page 5 of this notification, zoning citation, it says, the last sentence, remember you have 10 days from the date of this letter to request a hearing. And I'm not sure now whether it's the date that it was received or the date of the letter, because that seems to explicitly state it's the date of the letter.
Well, judging from the post office's records, they didn't receive it in February. So I wasn't going by that date. So because I sent the letter out on the 26th, in other words, I put it in the outgoing mail for the town, I had no way of knowing that it wouldn't go out until the 30th, which was 4 days later. So regardless of whether, in my view, regardless of whether I said that the date of this letter or not, I'm rather sure that his attorney advised him, you have 10 days from the date that it is in fact sent out. I think the statute itself is unclear on that. It just simply uses the word sent. The day the word, or I don't actually have the text in front of me, but it's not exactly clear. Sometimes they spell it out more clearly, like, you can't even count the first day and the last day. You have to count the 10 days in between. Here it's still not exactly.
And more, if I may, just as a guide going forward, so we're not really sure if it's the date of the letter or the date that the person receives the letter? And if that's the case, then shouldn't we just say that the date of the receipt?
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I'm quite sure that it's not the date that he receives the letter. Of that I'm certain. But because, as I say, look, if it had been a Wednesday afternoon and I had personally gone to the post office, although I can't because.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying it's kind of hard for us to know that time frame then, if it's going to be like that,
Right, and that's why I did not want to err on the side of, having the proceedings, having the appeal be shot down because of the fact that I didn't give the proper time for the appellant, I would rather err on the side of caution.
I hear
so
you.
that- Yeah.
But what I'm
certainly
driving
in the
at
future, we
is
can
maybe we should make it the date of receipt and track it, so then we can have a ironclad and fair and objective process versus this is interpretive and, you know, I don't know when he got it, maybe he got a return receipt, but the letter that was sent out says something different, but in any case, Mr. Kane.
Yeah, hi, Andy Keem. Just wanted to make a suggestion that, one of the things, I think we had discussed somewhat off and on, in the past is, maybe at our next, meeting, or if we have time, if we don't have time at a subsequent meeting, it might behoove this commission to have a, short executive session to kind of go over some housekeeping items, you know, for items like this. I'm not really that certain on all of the exact dates and some of the procedural things, but I think it might be behoove us to, you know, have a sit-down so that we're all on the same page, and that would be my recommendation for our next meeting concerning this item and several other items that we've had, so.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Ms. Hatza, please.
Thank you. With regard to that, that the commissions are not allowed to have an executive session for that type of thing. That's not one of the 5 reasons that the commission can have an executive session. Nonetheless, it can certainly be part of the regular meeting. The
Okay.
public is willing to hear what's being discussed.
Sure.
But it can be certainly an item on, on the agenda.
Could it be like under number 11, commissioner comments and informal discussion, for example?
Or you can add something like business proper.
Yeah, okay.
Discussion of.
But the term executive session is the problematic one,
Right.
perhaps.
Yeah, no,
All right.
That means you go into, no one else is allowed to hear it.
Yeah, no, I accept what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next up, item number 6, review correspondence. There is none that I'm aware of unless anyone has something to bring forward. Hearing none. Next up is item number 7, old business. I see that there is none on our agenda for that under old business. Number 8, new business. Ms. Hadza, I see you have something to say.
Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Chairman. I would like to recommend to the commission, for administrative reasons, we add to the agenda under new business, an item, we'll call it A, because there is no other item. 70 Stony Hill Road, application Z-23-5, Attorney Neil Marcus for Infinity Development LLC, Leaking Danny Lynn, member, site plan application arising from efforts to reach a settlement in the case of Infinity Development LLC versus the Planning Commission of the Town of Brookfield, HHD-CD-18-6092-085-S, application for affordable housing, 3-lot subdivision, number PL-17-9, submitted to the Planning Commission on June 26, 2017, and approved with conditions on February 15, 2018. The reason I'm asking for this to be added will become clear once we add it. And I would also recommend that no action be taken on this application tonight. As I say, it's simply an administrative request, that the item be added to the agenda since it technically should be received tonight by this commission, by operation of law. And once it is received, I would recommend the commission just table it to the next meeting because we don't have any, it's frankly not ready for presentation to the zoning commission tonight.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have a question or comment at this time? Hearing none. I have some that I don't think are substantive, but more procedural related to this. Do we have a copy of the application? Because I didn't see it in my packet, but I know it's fairly recent.
I thought it was delivered to you along with the packet. It was on the agenda for several days.
Yeah.
It was. Called Pond Meadow.
Yeah, but that's all he got. Application.
So this is it here? Okay. I see maps, but I don't see an application.
Well, there is an application on the site that we have, the OpenGov site that we have. And that's the form that the town requires applicants to apply on.
Thank you. And do we have the date that the application was received?
I think Bram's getting it now, Mr. Lawler's getting it now.
It's not in the file. It came in piecemeal.
I'm trying to get it to the site now.
Okay. Perhaps if I may, I'm just interested in being able to review it, but I guess for the purposes of what you're requesting, it isn't critical that we have it. We have your representation that we want to discuss this and acknowledge the receipt. It would have been helpful to look at the actual item that we're acknowledging receiving, but in any case, would anyone in the commission like to make a motion relative to Ms. Hatz's request?
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to make a motion that item number Z, I believe it's application Z23-5, is that fair to say? Be added to the item 8A tonight as new business to be further discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Kame. Would anyone like to second Mr. Kame's motion? Mrs. Holmes has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Hadza, I saw your hand up. Is there something you'd like to say?
Thank you, Mr. Getz. I just wanted to say that in response to some of your questions, I've now got it before me. The form on the OpenGov was created on February 1st. The documents themselves, however, were uploaded slightly later. So in other words, the item was opened on the 1st, but the documents themselves were uploaded, I believe, on Monday, which would have been, I don't know if I have my file, but, somewhat later. But nonetheless,
The
statutes.
6th?
Yes, the statutes require that, the statutes say that any application received 24 hours before the next regular meeting is, by operation of the law, it's automatically received. The commission, can certainly dispose of it as it wishes, but not until it's actually, received. So I would like to keep it on the add it to the agenda, keep it on the agenda until such time as we can determine. This is a very sticky, messy thing dealing with two court cases on the wetlands and planning, been going on for years. Until we can unravel what's going on exactly with the attorneys, I'd like to make sure that we don't lose track of it and keep it on the agenda, at least, if nothing else, for the time being, as a reminder that it needs to be disposed of properly.
Thank you, Ms. Hadza. Would anyone else have any questions or comments? We do have a motion on the floor. I surmise there is no further discussion. If there is any, please speak up. Hearing none, we'll call the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? None. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hadza.
A quick question.
Mr. Kane.
Now the item is on the agenda for tonight, do we need to
I would like to
take some procedural action on it?
I would like to, if it pleases Mr. Getz, I would like Mr. Getz and the commission to consider tabling the item since we don't have someone to present it to us tonight. And it's not, in my view and in the attorney's view, Attorney Schellenberg's view, there are some defects for the application so far. We need some more information, and it's just not ready to be. The attorney, the applicant's attorney, Mr. Marcus, and Ms. Schellenberg and I all agree that it's best that we simply take the items.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, the chair is ready to entertain a motion to table item Z-23-5 until our next regular meeting, which is February 23rd.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item, Z-23-5, until February 23rd.
And Mrs. Holmes has made the motion. Do we have a second to the motion? Mr. Pratt has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion about the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Kane, please.
Just a quick question.
Sorry.
I'm in favor of that, but and I understand it. I just understand, this does start the 65-day window, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Kane, it does in fact, and that's the reason it needs to be on the agenda, because it starts the 65-day decision deadline.
And that can be extended with consent from,
It cannot in this case.
Okay.
The site plan application is a simple, flat 65 days.
Okay.
And that's why I would strongly recommend that the commission get on this agenda until, and watch the 65-day period, which ends on April 4th.
thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Hatza. Is there any further discussion about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item up, number 9, other business proper. A, follow-up question from ZBA regarding residential portions of the TCD/TCDP. Ms. Hatz, is that something you want to discuss, or?
Mr. Chairman, if
Oh,
I may, I read
Certainly, Mr. Timmerman.
I read the question, and I had to look into it.
Oh, okay.
This is somewhat related to the side setback in the TCD, but now they have questions on the overlay, the residential overlay. So if it pleases the chair, I'll put together something that we can decide on our next meeting and as our response back to the ZBA.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Timmerman, did we get this in writing?
We got it via email. I don't know why we
Okay.
don't have a hard copy here,
Okay.
but there's an email linked to the site.
Has the commissioners received it? Because I don't recall getting it, but.
I just went on to the agenda and you can click on it.
Oh, okay.
But, excuse me, just for administrative.
Certainly, Ms. Hudson.
So, I understand you can click on it online, but it's not in people's packets, is that correct?
No.
I didn't find it there, no.
Perhaps because it was just recently, it had just recently come in, what is going on, does anyone know? Have you seen this email?
No, I think it was an email a while ago, though. I don't think it was anything recent.
I saw it discussed at, well, when's our last meeting?
They just had a meeting the other night.
Yeah, it was Monday.
night and took the minutes of that meeting.
Oh, okay.
So they discussed it, and they discussed emailing it, and they got their, they made a motion.
Well, I know.
I don't know when the email went out.
Well, I know a letter was presented, and I believe Ms. Haza has the letter that was gonna, but I don't know about any email.
So there was a letter, in fact, presented at the ZBA meeting, it was a draft. The commission requested that the chairman rewrite it. That was agreed, the zoning board of appeals that he would rewrite it, but there was certainly no agreement that he would go and send one off, so I don't know if that's the case.
It's actually linked into our agenda on.
I have not seen the letter myself.
All right, so if I may, it sounds like members can go to the agenda, click on it, and they'll get it if they go and do that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. Next item up would be number 10, tabled items. We have item A, 2002 Canwood Lake Road, C-22-73, Danbury Slovak Gymnastic Union Sokol, 202 Canwood Lake Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. Proposed zone designation change from R-40 to MC. Public hearing set for March 9th, 2023. We're just noting that at this time. Any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item B, revision of zoning fee schedule, land use director.
Yeah.
Any update possibly, but.
Not exactly, no, I'm gonna present that to the commission at the next meeting. Actually, in advance of the next meeting, so you'll have it with your packet, so that you can, review the suggestions I made.
Thank you very much. Next item up is item number 11, commissioner comments and informal discussion. Anyone have anything to add? Mr. Kane?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd just like to congratulate our land use director for her official certification here as a zoning enforcement officer.
And I'm
And
not,
Congratulations.
completing the training. Thank you.
I passed the exams, but I still have to write my case study.
Okay.
But I
Oh.
am what's called an AZT now, which means an administrative zoning technician.
Excellent. Also, I'd like to thank you for the.
AZT, it's some term I've heard before.
I know, right? Exactly.
Well, I'm not going down that road, but I just also want to thank you for giving us that excellent training that we've had. I've attended 2 of the sessions already. Several members of this commission have also attended. It's very informative. In fact, some of the items of which we have discussed today's training, so very timely. And if folks are just willing to, they're apparently online, they're handling it as an honor system. You attend the training, you simply send an email in that you've completed the training, and we shall accept that, although I did check the list of attendees while I was on there. So that's very nice, and was there one other thing? I think that's it for now.
Mr. Kim, if I may
Yes.
ask a question about what you mentioned about the training. Could you tell us how long it took?
Well, interestingly enough, it didn't quite start on time. It took about, it's supposed to be 90-minute training. It kind of ran over. The nice part about it is you do not have to sit through the classes like we did. The training is now been recorded and is available online so that you can take it at your leisure on weekends or whenever. I suspect there'll be additional classes coming out, and there are also other classes online that we did not actually receive the email on. There is a class that's recommended to everybody, a basic land use official class, which is sort of the 101 level of what we do here. And excellent training, I have to say, very efficient. That's it.
Thank you, that's good to know. I'm glad that if I take the training, all the hard work's been done and I can have an easier time of it.
The answers probably will be, to the questions will probably be available in the recorded sessions.
And if I may, I'd like to also extend congratulations to Ms. Hatza for your accomplishment.
I couldn't have done it without this commission.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it without it.
You mean the public law?
Thank you. Is there any other comments from commissioners at this time? Hearing none. The next item is number 12, adjournment. At this time, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn, knowing that our next meeting is scheduled for February 23rd, 2023.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it please the commission, and I hope it will, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kame. Do we have a second? Mr. Komar spoke first, even though Mr. Pratt also seconded the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. I would only like to say one thing.